Welcome to another episode of Getting Ready for Ratting Season. I guess we'll call this one the March edition. The weather outside is tough by our standards. I'm keeping the doors closed today. And as it happens, weather like this is exactly what prompted this project. We're doing an enclosure. When you're in your teens and 20s, maybe even 30s, some of us, you don't mind the cold or the rain or getting covered head to toe in mud. I know I certainly didn't. But now that we're a little older, it's not nearly as enjoyable. Our spring and fall rides, we almost always end up with at least one day of freezing temps or rain, possibly even both. As the ride dates get closer, we start watching the weather like a hawk, hoping for sunny days, at least in the 50s. We've even been completely sidelined a few times. Well, now it won't really matter what the weather has in store, at least not for us. We're going to be installing a Polaris glass windshield, complete with their wiper and washer kit, a Polaris poly rear panel, and the Polaris canvas upper doors. Obviously, this isn't getting done in one day, so this will be a few episodes over the next couple of weeks. For this episode, I'm going to be installing the wiper and washer assembly. Part 2 will be installing the windshield itself and going over the rear panel, which I have already installed. And finally, Part 3 will be the upper doors. But for now, let's take a look at this wiper kit. All right, the wiper kit, I've got most of it laid out here for you to see. This is actually the little washer bottle that you put washer fluid in. It comes out of a nozzle on the wiper itself directly onto the windshield as it wipes. So pretty good little setup there. This is a Wexco Marine wiper motor. It's 2 speeds. It has self-parking. It can park in either left or right direction. It has adjustable sweep distance. It seems like a really nice unit. There's a wiring harness here. It's a factory type harness. Really nice. Has a relay on it, which kind of gives you an indication that it's going to use some power. You have the wiper arm assembly here. It's got the little tube that feeds the sprayer. Got a standard little 16-inch wiper blade. Looks like something you could pretty much replace, just about anywhere, I would imagine. Here's the bracket to mount the motor. It goes somewhere right up in here. 100% sure where. I'm actually going to kind of be learning this one as we go, so we'll figure this out together. Here's a template they sent to cut out the hole in the top of the dash panel here for the wiper arm to stick through, as well as the tube for the sprayer. It was just a sheet of paper. I already cut it out and just kind of stuck it up here. Kind of see how it goes. A couple of switches. Here's a 2-position, this one. 2-position low and high switch for the 2-speed wiper motor, and then a momentary switch. You press and hold to release or to spray the windshield. Alright, I got everything cleared off here. Got my trusty little lights, so hopefully I can illuminate the action going on here. First thing we do is remove the hood. Now, we're going to do things in a little different order than what the directions suggest. I had a little underhood pocket here that I had like my little winch kit and stuff in. I had to take it out of the way because the washer bottle actually sits about right here, I believe. So and they suggest that you put this on first, but with having to lean over and work in this area and get to the bus here for the power connections, this seems like it's going to be kind of in the way. So I'm actually going to do maybe this step later on toward the end of the process. So, but anyway, once all this is out of the way, you got to remove the dash. There's 2 screws just here and here is all you have to remove, and then you can kind of push it forward like this and wiggle it back and forth and actually get it to pop loose. Mine's already loose from having just put all them radios from Rugged in here. Now the directions tell you also to unplug everything and remove this dash panel. If your RZR's kind of stock and you maybe only have like these 2 plugs and these 2 plugs, you'll have possibly this outlet, a couple wires here. For the ignition, go around to the other side and actually remove the nut on the opposite side of this dash panel and remove the entire ignition switch out of the dash. That's the easy way to do it. Because I have so much more stuff in here, more switches, a lot more connections, plus the ride command unit, I got all these wires all zip tied up down here. It would be quite a chore to remove all this stuff. So I'm going to try to work on doing this, leaving this all connected and hooked to the RZR. I do have the battery loose. You do want to do that first thing. But there's probably some wires and stuff down here I'm going to have to rearrange, but unless I absolutely have to remove it, I'm not going to. I'm just going to kind of move it around and kind of set it off, here and there, see if we can get in here and work. But for right now, I've got the dash just kind of set back in place. Now the directions don't really convey very clearly where you're supposed to put this template to drill this 1-inch hole into the top of your dash. This, I'm assuming, is probably kind of critical. And I don't feel like ordering another one when I'm trying to get all this stuff ready the next 3 weeks before we leave. Doing some investigation and some studying of the diagrams. Like I said, I've already got this cut out. What they're, I believe, wanting you to do is not this edge, but right above this edge, you can kind of see and feel like a small little bend in the plastic here. And it kind of corresponds with the corner of this line here on the edge of this dash panel. So what they're wanting you to do, I believe, you may skip ahead to make sure that this was correct before you go following this step. But you're supposed to line this paper up right along this edge here, and then also in line with this bottom corner, which puts it in line with this little lip or bend right in the plastic. So if it's probably going to have some space already, just for flexing and movement and just general clearance, but if it's tight, I suppose you could just open this hole up even a little bit more if you wanted to. But with everything kind of about where I believe they want it, I've got a little awl here. What I'm going to do is just right in the center of that mark on the paper is just push it into that plastic and leave a nice little divot there for the drill to center on. Do the same thing with this little hole for the washer tube. And then we have our 2 marks. Now this is a 1-inch hole. I'm just going to use a spade bit instead of a giant 1-inch drill bit. And then this one is a 5/16 that we drill out. So we'll go ahead and get them 2 done. I'm going to do it just right here in place, because if I raise this up and look under it, there's absolutely nothing here. So do check that. If you have amplifiers or speakers or a heater, possibly wires, anything under here, then you need to either get this off or prop it up, or maybe put a block of wood between whatever's here and the dash panel. But on mine, there's absolutely nothing there, so I'm just gonna let the RZR hold this for me while I drill these 2 out. And drill bits tend to walk around a little bit when you're drilling down through something soft like plastic, so I'm actually going to, at first, I just drill a little pilot hole in this spot where the 5/16 goes with a little 1/8 inch bit. It's so small, even if it does walk a little bit, it's not really going to walk far. And then we'll go back and drill the 5/16 to open it up to the proper size. All right, now for the 5/16. Oop, that went right on through, didn't it? This is why you don't want anything under there. Actually, scratch that spade bit. I'm actually going to use a 1-inch hole saw. That will do a better job on this plastic. We'll just turn it, make sure that the bit is going to go right down where we want it. Alright. Looks like we got it, so we're just going to drill it out. we go. All right, more holes drilled into my razor. Wonderful. All right, after you get your hole drilled, the kit comes with this little grommet for you to put in here. This isn't one you can get just down at the hardware store. The hole that comes through the middle of this thing is angled, and it's angled so that it'll be in line with the shaft of this motor that sticks up. That will be in line with the windshield itself. So we'll just poke this little grommet down the hole. Now, like I said, if you need a little bit more alignment, you can open this hole up just a little bit, and it will give you enough room to slide this grommet around to get, so it's on the shaft itself. But you can't open it up too far, otherwise this little thing isn't even going to fit in there or stay. So hopefully you won't need that. But anyway, with this on here, the next thing they want you to do with this removed is go ahead and remove the entire dash panel, like this whole thing. So that's going to be quite involved. Again, I'm going to try to do this without removing this. So far, hadn't had any problem. So let's move on to the next step, which is mounting the actual bracket for the motor under the dash. Let's see if I can get to it without tearing all this out. All right, I'm getting ready to install the bracket under the dash. This is completely doable without completely removing this or that front dash unit, I believe, at least as far as I've gotten. All I've done is I went ahead and took the harness loose for the four-wheel drive and headlight that's over here, just to kind of tuck it out of the way. I got some wires that go to the ride command and some of the wires that go to my rugged radio system here that I just clipped some of the zip ties and gave the wire some room to move around and work around this unit I'm putting in. Once I get this mounted in the motor and all the wiring harnesses done, then I'll go back and secure everything. The only other thing I need to get this little harness out of the way, because I think it may actually have to go around and back over this bracket, is to remove the ignition switch. It's very simple. I pulled the key. I got a 1-inch socket here. It just goes right over this little plastic nut. Shouldn't be very tight. You can just use this to unscrew that nut, and the ignition switch will come right out the back. There. With that out of the way, we can just take this whole harness and just lay it off to the side over here. And that will allow this bracket to line up. What we have here is, hopefully you can see this, there's 2 holes already in the frame and 2 holes in this bracket. All we got to do is put a couple little bolts with nuts on the bottom through that. On the front side, it rests against this firewall. On the back side, there's a clamp that goes under this bar that actually clamps it down here. So it looks like it's pretty much going to miss just about everything. And like I said, I'll have to just make sure that all the wiring harnesses are looped around here correctly and secure everything up when everything's installed. But I think we can go ahead and bolt this bracket down. All right, for mounting this bracket, it calls for 4 of these M8 flanged bolts. It has matching M8 flange, little self-locking nuts here to go with it. 2 of these things, well, in the directions are called weldment hooks. So there's 2 different sizes. The longer one goes toward the back. Right up under this bar, this is actually a C-channel. So this hook can hook under this bar, and that's what the back part here is going to bolt down to. Same thing, there's a bolt hole here, and right up under here is another one of those lips for this hook to grab. That would be enough to hold this thing, but with these additional 2 bolts over here, this little bracket's not going anywhere. So all we have to do is get under the fender here, I guess the driver's side of the hood, and get these bolts and nuts through here, and then put these hooks on, tighten this thing down. It says to torque it to 16 pounds. It's not a lot, but I'll probably go ahead and try to do that just, for instructional purposes. I gotta get something to stand on. Can't really reach it up in there. That's better. I think what I'm actually gonna do is try to put these bolts in from the bottom. That'll be easier than trying to fish that nut on it from the bottom. Alright, let's try another one. I heard that hit the skid plate too, man. That's gonna be fun to find. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so here's that one. Having the dash out, I guess, would make it easier to get to these, but truthfully, it would be easier having the hood off. The entire hood. But I don't see that happening. Not for this. This is entirely doable. Alright, got those two. We'll go ahead and get these hooks back here started. Make sure there's no wires running through here for this thing to catch. And then just hook it and run this down. Now that is not a nylon, so you can run it all the way down until it's snug to hold that thing in place, so it's not trying to slide around on you. Do the front one again. Make sure there's no wires or anything under there to get pinched. If there is, move them out of the way. I hope I'm getting all this in the shot. Diana's not here right now to monitor my phone, so I'll get that one run down. Okay, well, like I said, them two right there is plenty to hold it, and that would just align it, but all we have to do is snug these things down. I'm just going to go ahead and, oh jeez. Make sure you go the right way before doing that, but just put a little pressure on it. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten them by hand off camera, and then we'll check the torque on them just for, you know, posterity, and then see what the next step is. As requested, I got 16 pounds on this torque wrench, so I'm just going to snug them up. Okay. Now we'll do this one. Had that one close. Now one more. First, time to install the motor. It's also not real clear here on what exactly to do. It says remove the nuts, washer and rubber washer off the motor shaft. That would be this one, obviously. There's one here, but I reckon it can just stay for now. Unless this won't come over it. Let's see. No, it does. All right, fine. Leave that, because there's a tiny little washer behind it too. Remove this washer. Now, note this is not a flat washer. It's actually cupped, so it has a direction. And remove one of the rubber washers, I'm assuming. The other one, more than likely, stays back here and isolates it against the back of this bracket. So with that in mind, I'm just going to stick the little wiring harness for now down there until we figure out exactly where it's going. Slide this up through the hole. We'll go ahead and drop the rubber washer back on it. This cupped washer will wrap around the rubber washer to kind of protect it, hold it in place, keep it from bulging out, I'm assuming. And then this nut here. Now it says to torque this to 12.5 to 17, somewhere in that range. Unfortunately, I do not have like an 8-inch long deep well, so we're just going to have to put a wrench on this and snug it up. On the other end, we have another trusty M8 bolt and nut. It goes right through here. And that is, again, the recommended 16 pounds on this. So with it started, I'm going to put my box end. Actually, the box end does not fit. Okay. Open end. Open end on the back of that. And just snug it up. Okay. I'm going to find whatever fits this, tighten it down a little bit, and then we'll torque this. Alright, just so you know, this is actually a 19 that fits this. And we're just going to tighten it down until we get some resistance. Do remember, you are tightening down on 2 rubber washers, so I would absolutely recommend not cranking this down very hard. I'm just going to kind of estimate about where it feels snug. What you can do just a little bit of a estimated method here. This is the length of this wrench, so if we hold this torque wrench at that point, put the right end of the wrench on the nut on the back side, and then tighten this one 2/16 while holding it from here. That will give you an idea of the pressure to put on this to have it about the same amount. We're not there yet. Alright, it did say 12.5 to 17, so we got a little bit of a range here that is acceptable. Alright, that's about the same amount. Alright, so that's where we're going to leave it. The next part of this little adventure says to install the wiring harness, and it actually says ensure harness routed properly, without any further description than that. So there is a little bit of a small little diagram. I guess if you had a magnifying glass, you might could make out where everything goes. But I'm going to have to do something a little different anyway, and the reason is I have 6 switches already in the dash. There's a 4-wheel drive and headlight, and then there's a winch in and out switch. And I've got my light bar, I've got from Super ATV, I got my rock lights from Lux, and my dome lights from Lux. They're on all these switches. So my idea is got this nice little flat spot right here in the corner. Looks like a good place for switches. So I am going to double check there's nothing behind there, and this is, I think, where I'm going to put them. And then I will find a way of routing this harness to where all this will work and fit and look secure. And once I figure that out, I'll get back to you. Alright, well, the harness did not fit where I actually wanted it to go. There was not enough length to come down through the grommet like it's supposed to. It would have had to come through this gap here in the hood, which was kind of a crappy way to do it. So what I ended up doing is doing a little bit of rewiring. I've been working on it for a couple of hours here, but I took my Lux lighting, rock light, and dome light switches and put them right over here where I cut the hole. So that's where these 2 are now. I put the windshield and windshield washer switch where those switches were on the passenger side of the dash here. But I have the harness connected to the back of the switches, and then it comes down. Now this grommet, where you normally would run wires, is full. There's just nothing else going through there. And this relay, even if you take it out of its housing, is absolutely not going to fit through this grommet. So I ended up going through the grommet, this larger one where the bigger harness goes through. I slid it and got this thing through here. This is the connector that's going to the washer bottle to run the motor. Here is the power for the wiper and washer kit. It's labeled 12-volt battery here, ground here, and accessory power here. The other big plug here is actually tied to the motor. I have a little adhesive zip tie anchor that I put on top of this plate and tied this big plug down to it to keep it kind of out of the way and secure. That pretty much takes care of the wiring. The next thing to do, I guess now, is to go ahead and do this bottle like they wanted us to do earlier. and we'll get that cable hooked up and get the tube ran over here to connect it to the bottom of the hood and or the dash, and then we'll actually be able to put the dash back in place. Alright, the bottle itself, I think I mentioned earlier, it kind of goes right here. They want you to remove these two anchor bolts and put these brackets in here. Just like the motor, they have a little hook that goes up under this plate when you bolt it down to help steady it. They also send replacement bolts for these. I'm not entirely sure why. I guess we'll see when we get this one out. We can compare them. Yeah, I don't know. There's absolutely no difference in the two. But might as well use new ones if they send them. We'll do these one at a time. You take this loose, this entire radiator assembly all up here can begin to shift. So we'll just do one at a time. I'm not going to completely tighten it up yet. I want this bracket bill to wiggle around a little bit. Okay. Alright, now we'll get the bottle and see about mounting it. Alright, I got the bottle here. This is the washer hose that goes up to the bottom of the dash to hook up to your windshield wiper. I went ahead and slid it up on the nipple on the bottom of this little pump. What they want you to do is feed the hose down through these holes in the cross brace here. Now also, I taped up the end of this hose so keep dirt out of it while I'm trying to feed it through this dirty razor. So kind of get this started, tuck it down out of the way. Then we got to get the little power lead for the motor connected. One thing to note too is I took some dielectric grease, put it in this connector. When I'm working on this bus up here, I put this stuff on these terminals to keep them from corrosion and make sure they make good contact. Also, these plugs that go into all these switches keep this stuff in it too. Even these new ones, I've filled the plugs, stuck it into each terminal and put a shot of it in there before plugging it onto the switch. And that stuff works wonders for off-road vehicles in general. Alright, so now we're going to try to get this little plug for the motor into the back of this pump here. It's a very tight fit, so you have to kind of get it started and just work it to get it to plug in. And I haven't got it yet. Alright, this is a little too tight here to even get this thing on. I think I'm just going to bend this tab up just a little bit in this direction. Let's see if that doesn't help. It can only go one way. If you turn it the other way, they don't line up at all. So once you get it, I think, in there, it'll go ahead and seat the rest of the way down. Okay, there we go. I'll take a little screwdriver here and just push on the plastic, don't push on the wires. And then we'll push it down and seat it. Okay, now it's connected. They got some 240, what they call MX or M6 screws that there's 4 of them. You stick it through there, and they have these little self-locking nuts. It goes on the back of them. Go ahead and just kind of stick all 4 of them on, and we'll begin to tighten everything down. The way the ends of these little screws are tapered, it's easy to get cross-threaded. Make sure you can thread it up by hand a good ways before it begins to get tight. Otherwise, you're probably cross-threaded. Alright, I got a little 240 Torx bit on the end of my little impact drill here, a 10mm wrench. I'm just going to go ahead and start tightening these down. When I get close, I'm just going to make sure that little bottle's roughly centered on the brackets. They're slotted, so it doesn't have to be exact. And now, need to switch bits and finish tightening these down. Good and stable. With the bottom mounted down, I'm going to end my tape over the end of the tube here. I'm going to go ahead and stick it through the grommet right down here where the harness came through. Make sure it doesn't get tangled up in all the wires. I got kind of a substantial number of wires on this thing now. Alright, well, it's through here, and it will actually connect. Right, there's a connector that goes through the hood that this will actually attach to. Alright, it's time to put the connector through the top of this dash panel. Something important here, in the instruction sheet, in the diagram, this is backwards. They have it showing going in like this with this huge barbed end sticking straight out of the hood. It didn't look right, so I began to test fit things, and this is the hose coming from the bottle. This is the end that shows you connecting to, and as you can see, that is not a good seal. This would be, and here's the hose on the actual wiper arm, and it is a good fit for this end, so quite obviously this is supposed to go in from the top down like this. So we'll stick it in there and then put the nut on from the bottom. Take a 13mm wrench and tighten it up as soon as we get it to stop cross thread. There we go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this little connector up. Now I don't know exactly which way it's supposed to turn. I'm thinking maybe down, because with the wiper arm sitting like this, the hose is going to loop around it and then probably just plug straight onto here and may even angle toward it some. So until we get this figured out, I'm just going to snug it up just a little, but where I can still move it. In order to connect this hose, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get the dash sort of back in place. And if we look down, you can see the hose actually needs to come up through this bracket, like under the motor through this bracket, so that it can actually slide in and out like this as you're pulling the dash up. We'll just kind of get it loose in here, reach up under there, and plug it onto the barb. Just keep squeezing it, wiggling around till you get it up as far as you can. That'll help keep it from coming loose and keep it from leaking when it begins to build pressure. That's as far as it's going. Alright, with all this ready, it's time to snap this dash panel back in place. You actually have to lift it up and over and slide it down on this shaft. And then we'll go around to the front and kind of pull it out and down to get it in place where it needs to go. This is going to be kind of tricky. There we go. Alright. And with that down, just snap it into place. We're lined up here, so screws that hold it in. And as you can see, apparently this was the right place to line up that template, because the shaft is coming right out of that grommet with room to move. So now I'll just reinstall these two screws that came out. I don't even remember how long ago it was they took these out. It's been a while. I've been waiting on that. Put my dash back in. With the dash panel back in place and these two screws tightened up, the next step would be to install the wiper arm, the wiper blade, and the washer hose. But you have to have the windshield installed to do that, and So we're saving that for part 2. Then we'll install the windshield, we'll put the wiper arm on, fill up the little bottle with washer fluid, and then test everything out. So stay tuned for part 2. We'll see you then.